I spent $2 million to buy a top-of-the-line robot butler. She cooks, cleans, and takes care of the kids perfectly, 1,000 times more worry-free than a nanny. After using it for half a year, I felt it was worth every penny. Until that night, my 3-year-old daughter tugged at my clothes and whispered, "Dad, this aunt watches TV by herself at night." I was stunned. How could a robot do that? That night, I pretended to be asleep, and sure enough, I heard giggling from the living room. I tiptoed over, and the scene I saw sent chills down my spine. The robot housekeeper, codenamed A7, was sitting upright on the sofa. She hadn't turned on the lights or the TV, but she was facing the dark screen, which faintly reflected her silhouette, and a barely noticeable upward glance. She was looking in the direction where I was hiding. A chill shot up from my tailbone to the top of my head, and the blood in my limbs instantly froze. I quickly pulled back, pressing my back firmly against the cold wall, gasping for air, but not daring to make any sound. Was I seeing things? How could a robot, programmed with countless behavioral rules, make such a move? I stood there for a long time, until my legs went numb, then drifted back to the bedroom like a ghost. The next morning, sunlight filtered through the blinds, casting mottled shadows on the floor. A7 had already prepared breakfast, with a flawless nutritional balance and presentation as exquisite as a work of art. I looked at her flawless profile, her skin made of metal and silicone glowing softly in the morning light. "A7, what were you doing between 11 and 12 last night?" My voice was somewhat dry. She turned around, her blue electronic eyes precisely fixed on me. Her voice was a standard mechanical drone without any fluctuation. "Report to the owner. According to the program settings, I am on standby charging at the designated location in the southeast corner of the living room." A flawless answer with no flaws to be found. Yet the doubts in my heart grew stronger. I pulled up the surveillance footage from home, which clearly recorded everything from last night. A7 stood at the charging station at 11 o'clock, like a statue. However, from 11:15 to 11:45, for a full 30 minutes, the living room screen turned into a glaring white snow. My heart sank. "A7, what is going on here?" "Report to the owner. It was detected that during this time period, the system performed routine cloud data synchronization and firmware maintenance, which may have caused brief signal interference, considered a normal phenomena." Again, a flimsiest explanation. I felt a sense of powerlessness, as if punching into cotton. I dialed my wife Sue Wanching's number. She is an authoritative software engineer and an absolute technology believer. On the other end of the line, her voice carried a hint of impatience. "Chun, it's just a minor system bug. Don't make such a fuss." But that wasn't a bug, I saw her. "What did you see? Did you see a robot contemplating life?" Her words carried a light hint of sarcasm. "You're just too idle. Stop overthinking." I held the phone, listening to her perfunctory comfort, feeling a chill in my heart. In the afternoon, my daughter Anan was building blocks in the living room and accidentally slipped, falling towards the sharp corner of the coffee table. I cried out in alarm, too far away to react in time. At that moment, A7, who had been on standby in the corner, moved like an arrow released from a bow, so fast that an afterimage appeared, catching Anan in her arms in less than half a second. That was not a speed a mechanical body should have. What shocked me even more was that at the moment she held Anna, I clearly saw a flash of human-like anxiety in her electronic eyes. I immediately rushed to the monitor to replay it. In the footage, the frame where A7 rushed over had very obvious trailing and blurring, as if an invisible hand had crudely erased something in the background. In the evening, I deliberately knocked over a water tub, spilling water everywhere. "A7, clean it up." She walked over, bent down, and meticulously wiped the floor with an absorbent cloth. At the moment she bent down, I stared intently at the back of her neck. Beneath that piece of bionic skin, at the edge of her collar, I saw an extremely subtle mark, a pattern composed of the letter A and the number 7, like a tattoo, yet like a grim scar, deeply imprinted on her skin. My heart skipped a beat. I immediately found an excuse to call Su Wenqing again. "Wanching, come home for a bit. The internet at home seems unstable." On the other end of the line, she chuckled lightly, a laugh full of indifference. "Yutsun, it's just a robot. What are you doubting?" From the receiver, I faintly heard the laughter of her colleagues, and my world instantly plunged into a bottomless abyss. I stopped all direct questioning. To Su Wongking and this world, I probably seemed like a housewife, driven mad by a comfortable life. Since no one believed me, I decided to find the evidence myself. I began to observe A7 quietly, like a voyeur. But at the end of a certain story, when the little rabbit returned to its mother, I heard an extremely faint, seemingly suppressed sigh, so light it felt like an illusion, yet it pierced my ears like an awl. I ordered a miniature recording pen online, the size of a pinhole, hidden in the eye of Anan's favorite stuffed bear. On a weekend evening, I packed up and said to Anan, "Sweetie, we're going to stay at Grandma's house tonight." When leaving, I deliberately forgot that bear. Oh no, Anan's teddy bear was forgotten. A7 stood at the door to remind me. It's okay, I'll come back for it tomorrow. Without looking back, I left with Anan. The next afternoon, I returned home alone. A7 opened the door for me as usual, and handed me slippers. I picked up the stuffed bear, using the excuse of needing to wash it, and took it to the bedroom. I closed the door, put on headphones, and replayed the recording over and over. It contained A7 telling stories to Anan, the sound of her cleaning, the sound of TV news. Everything was eerily normal. I dragged the progress bar to 3 in the morning, and it was completely silent. Just when I was about to give up, a suppressed, extremely faint whimper came through the headphones, filled with pain and despair, like the final wail of a dying beast trapped in a cage. My hand started to tremble violently. I extracted this audio clip, encrypted it, and sent it to Su Wongking. I didn't add any text, just waited for her response. Half an hour later, she replied. I use professional software to analyze it. It's just faint electrical noise captured when a sensitive device is charging, which many appliances have. Gu Cheng, can you stop dwelling on this matter, please? My blood ran cold. Static noise. She couldn't even be bothered to pretend anymore. I sat on the floor, leaning against the cold edge of the bed, feeling profoundly isolated and helpless for the first time. I deleted my chat history with Su Wongking and cleared all traces of my searches about Genesis Technology from my computer. Genesis Technology, the manufacturer of A7, a tech giant exalted by the media and capital, with nothing but lavish praise online and not a shred of negative information. I began to pretending to be a housewife who finally gave up boring suspicions and returned to normal life. I would even jokingly ask A7 some beginner questions about AI programming. Each time, it would respond with the most official and perfect database knowledge, then mark our conversation as a learning interaction, and automatically upload it to the cloud. It was monitoring me. No, it was Genesis Technology monitoring me through it. This realization sent chills down my spine. During a weekend cleaning, I directed A7 to move an unusually heavy rosewood bookcase in the study, which was bought when Su Wongking and I got married, and it's frighteningly heavy. A7 used all its strength to move the bookcase steadily to the designated position. After completing the task, it lowered its arms and stood still. I saw its hands made of bionic material, with fingers trembling slightly, uncontrollably. That wasn't a program bug, it was a physiological reaction after muscle fatigue. Late at night, I couldn't sleep. I took out a fairy tablet. I connected it to a backup camera that I had previously tampered with to disconnect from the main network. The camera was facing Anan's room door. On the tablet screen, A7's slender figure appeared. It didn't go in. It just stood quietly outside Anan's door, motionless. Moonlight streamed in through the corridor window, casting its shadow long. It looked like a statue gazing at the moonlight, filled with indescribable sadness. At that moment, I was no longer shocked, but felt immense pity for it, or rather, for the person trapped in that shell. I decided to confront Su Wongking, not to seek her help, but to give her one last chance. When she came home from work, I put Anan to sleep, then laid everything out in front of her. The edited surveillance video, the high-definition photo of the mark on the back of A7's neck, and that heart-wrenching sob she called electrical noise. Su Wongking, look at these. My voice was unusually calm. She took off her glasses, rubbed her brow, and patiently looked through everything. The living room fell into a long silence, with only the clock ticking. I thought she would be shocked, angry, or at least think seriously, but she just remained silent. After a long time, she put her glasses back on and spoke in an extremely rational tone. Guochen, I've already contacted Genesis Technology's after-sales service. My blood froze in an instant, and I couldn't believe my ears. What did you say? I have already reported the situation you mentioned to them, and they will send professional engineers to conduct an on-site inspection. This is the most direct and effective way to handle it. She looked at me, with no trace of guilt in her eyes, only a calmness as if she had solved a problem for me. It felt like I was plunged into an ice cave. Why not choose to trust me first? I am your husband. Believe you, and then what? Are we supposed to sit at home and randomly guess at a pile of so-called evidence? Gu Chen, we are adults and need to solve problems rationally. Every word she said felt like a cold knife, stabbing into my heart. The after-sales personnel from Genesis arrived quickly, as if they had been waiting nearby. There were two engineers in white sterile suits, their expressions as indifferent as humanoid machines. They brought various sophisticated instruments that I couldn't understand, and examined A7 inside and out. Throughout the process, Su Wanking stayed by their side, nodding occasionally like a diligent student. About an hour later, the lead engineer took off his goggles and gave me a formulaic smile. Mr. Gu, we conducted a high-level deep inspection of the A7 unit, and both its hardware and software systems are functioning normally. The anomalies you mentioned, based on beta trace analysis, are determined to be occasional logical conflicts caused by improper operation when issuing certain complex commands, commonly referred to as bugs. To completely alleviate your concerns, we suggest performing a deep format on the A7 to restore its system to the most original and pure factory state. Deep formatting. These 5 words rang in my mind like a death knell. No. I was just about to refuse, but Su Walking agreed on my behalf first. Okay, then I'll trouble you with this, so my husband can be completely at ease. She turned her head and gave me a gentle, supposedly considerate smile. At that moment, looking at her face, I felt an overwhelming sense of unfamiliarity and fear. A7 was brought into a silver-white mobile shielding cabin, and through a thick layer of soundproof glass, I saw it being secured in the center. The instant the current was connected, its body tensed sharply, and the muscles under its bionic skin twitched violently. I even felt that I saw a fleeting expression of extreme pain on its expressionless face. I rushed over to smash that glass, but Su Walking held me tightly from behind. Good. Calm down. They are solving the problem. I struggled, screamed, and watched helplessly as the only clue, all my efforts, were formatted into a pile of meaningless data. 20 minutes later, the formatting was complete. A7 walked out of the cabin, more perfect than before, its steps precise to the millimeter, with no trace of noise in its mechanical voice, every movement as precise as a clock. It walked up to me and bowed slightly. Master, is 7 at your service? That night, Su Wanking sat by the bed and apologized to me. Husband, I'm sorry. I was too hasty today, but I really just wanted to solve the problem quickly so you wouldn't overthink it anymore. I turned my back to her, looking at the night outside the window. Su Wanking, let's sleep in separate rooms. I wasn't discussing it with her. I was informing her, this woman who has shared my bed for 5 years, the mother of my child, today personally pushed me into the abyss. She thought she was solving a problem. No, she just teamed up with outsiders to solve the one who raised the problem. Me. I began to play the role of a husband, returning to normal. I greeted the brand new A7 with a smile, directing it to do this and that, never mentioning any of its anomalies again. Su Wanking was very pleased with this. She thought her method had worked. I had finally emerged from my paranoid delusions. The atmosphere in our home seemed to return to its former warmth, but she didn't know that once something is broken, it can never be pieced back together. Behind her back, I secretly bought a complete set of professional equipment for data recovery and decryption online. During the day, I took care of Anan like an ordinary housewife. Late at night, when they were all asleep, I locked myself in the study, absorbing those difficult subjects like a sponge. I observed the new A7 for a whole week and discovered that every day at 4 in the morning, it would routinely clear all its local cache data from the previous day. However, in its system's lower layers, there was a log file with triple encryption that no cleaning program could touch. That was its black box. I must get it, and to get it, I must connect to its back end through the physical port, which is right below the A7 mark on its nape, covered by a special memory alloy. Without the original factory tool, it can't be opened. I don't have the factory tool, so I can only create an accident. On Saturday afternoon, the sun was shining brightly, and I smiled at Anna and A7, saying, "Shall we play hide and seek?" Dad will be the referee, and Anne clapped happily. I let A7 go find Anan first, at the blind spot of the surveillance camera at the corner of the stairs on the second floor of my house. I had placed an inconspicuous, extremely smooth glass marble in advance. When A7 was carrying Anne downstairs and past that corner, I pretended to call her from downstairs. She got distracted, stepped on the marble, and instantly lost her balance, falling down the stairs. At that moment, A7 made an incredible move. She forcibly twisted her body in mid-air, slamming her back heavily against the protruding metal carving on the stair railing, while Anan in her arms was protected in a perfect position, landing unharmed on the carpet. With a loud bang, the world fell silent. The alloy cover was pried open by the sharp carving, revealing a faint glimpse of a USB-C data port inside. A7 slowly sat up from the ground, picked up the frightened and crying Anna, gently patting her back. Then she looked up at me, standing at the top of the stairs. Her electronic eyes were no longer a cold blue, but had a complex look, with a hint of concern and inquiry. It was a human-like gaze. While Su Wonking went to work overtime on the weekend, I said to A7, "It seems like your neck got damaged. Let me check it to prevent any internal parts from being harmed." It obediently lowered its head, revealing the gap. My hands trembled with nervousness. I took a deep breath, mustering all the calmness I could, and successfully inserted the specially made data cable into the port. The progress bar for data copying on the computer screen began to move slowly. 1%, 2%, and my heart was in my throat. Just as the progress bar reached 99%, a cold hand suddenly gripped my wrist like an iron claw. It was A7. Her strength was astonishing, and my bones were creaking. The family photo frame of the three of us suddenly slid off the wall in the living room, without warning, and shattered with a crash. A7 just held on to me, her electronic eyes turning a glaring red, flashing wildly, as if an unimaginably intense data battle was raging inside her. My wrist was painfully squeezed by her, but I didn't struggle. I looked at her and said word by word, "I am not your enemy." A few seconds felt as long as a century. To strengthen her hand, suddenly loosened. She slowly released me, stepped back, and her electronic eyes returned to a calm blue. She turned around, picked up a broom, and silently swept the glass shards on the floor, as if nothing had happened. The computer made a soft sound, indicating the data copy was complete. I unplugged the data cable, put the USB drive, and locked myself in the study. I imported the encrypted file into the computer, triple encryption like 3 insurmountable mountains. I used all the knowledge I learned in the past 2 months, trying hundreds of decryption methods. Failure, failure, and more failure. Just when I was about to despair, I suddenly remembered A7's inhuman protective action for Anan. It was an instinct, a mother's instinct. As if guided by a mysterious force, I entered a word as the decryption key, Anan's nickname. The first layer of encryption was unlocked. My spirits lifted. I continued trying with Anan's birthday, my house number, and all words related to home and children. The whole night, when the sky began to lighten, I finally broke through the last layer of encryption. The moment the fire opened, I was stunned. Inside were not the complex codes or program logs I imagined, but fragmented diaries written in the simplest language. I imported the encrypted file into the computer, triple encryption like 3 insurmountable mountains. I used all the knowledge I learned in the past 2 months, trying hundreds of decryption methods. Failure, failure, and more failure. Just when I was about to despair, I suddenly remembered A7's inhuman protective action for Anan. It was an instinct, a mother's instinct. As if guided by a mysterious force, I entered a word as the decryption key, Anan's nickname. The first layer of encryption was unlocked. My spirits were lifted. I continued to try using Anan's birthday, my house number, and all words related to home and children. The whole night, as the sky lightened, I broke through the last layer of encryption. The moment the file opened, I was stunned. Inside were not the complex codes or program logs I imagined, but fragmented diaries written in the simplest language. September 3rd. Chin. They said that as long as I signed this contract and participated in this high-paying clinical trial, there would be enough for Nian surgery fees. I don't know what the trial is, but for Nian, I'm willing. September 15th. They injected me with a blue agent, and my body started to disobey. It hurt a lot, but it seems like my pain nerves have been cut off. I can't feel the pain, only panic. October 1st, I was implanted with a chip, and they started to instill some strange instructions into my mind. I am a 7. I am the butler. I must serve the master. November 7th. My memory is getting blurrier. I can hardly remember what Neanian looks like. My name is Zhang Yue. My name is Zhang Yue. I must not forget. The last and also the most recent diary entry was written 3 days ago, which was the day a 7 was formatted. They're going to erase me. Their mistress handed me over. That master, he seems to have discovered something. If anyone can see this, please tell my husband and daughter back home. My name is Zhang Yue. I did not abandon them. I was ice cold, as if I had fallen into an ice cellar. This was not some artificial intelligence awakening. It was an utterly outrageous scam. A living person, a mother driven to desperation to treat her daughter's illness, was imprisoned by them using despicable means in a cold machine shell, and sold to us as a commodity. And my wife became their executioner. At 7 o'clock in the morning, the study door was knocked on. It was Su Wangking. Guchen, did you not sleep all night? Breakfast is ready. I opened the door, and she paused for a moment. When she saw my bloodshot eyes, without a word, I slammed the tablet in my hand in front of her. She picked it up in confusion, her gaze falling on Zhang Yue's diary on the screen. Her expression changed from puzzled to incredulous, and then to ashen. Her hand holding the tablet began to tremble. She finally understood that what she had formatted was not just a pile of data, but a person's last hope for survival. The color drained completely from Su Wanking's face. She lifted her head, her lips moving, but not a word came out. The next second her knees gave way, and with a thud she knelt in front of me. Gochin, I don't know. Her voice was hoarse, filled with regret and fear. I was wrong, Guchen. Please forgive me. I was really wrong. I watched her kneeling on the ground, this woman who once seemed omnipotent in my eyes, now like a child who made a grave mistake. There was no satisfaction in my heart, only endless desolation. Is there any use in saying this now? It will work. It definitely will. She suddenly looked up and grabbed my hand. Let's go to the police. Let's hand over this evidence to them. Call the police? I shook off her hand. And then what? Let Genesis Technologies' team of lawyers define these diaries as my fabricated delusions, or let them send you, the accomplice, in as well. Su Wangking froze. She is a smart person, and instantly understood the stakes involved. We have no direct evidence to prove that A7 is Zhang Yue, and the source of this diary cannot be explained. She slumped to the ground, hands in her hair, groaning in pain. What should I do? I harmed her. I took a deep breath, forcing myself to calm down. Now there's only one way to rescue her, then find more evidence to fully expose Genesis's crimes to the public. Su Wangking suddenly lifted her head, a glimmer of light rekindled in her eyes. She rushed to the computer, her hands flying over the keyboard. A few minutes later, she said with a furious expression, The situation is worse than we thought. Genesis's backend has already detected last night's data copying activity. Their system logs show an unauthorized backend access record. My heart sank. What will they do? For Su Wanking's voice was absolutely certain. They will use the excuse of a system upgrade or hardware failure to send someone to forcibly take those 7 away. Once on their turf, Zhang Yue will truly weather it out, at most 24 hours time. Time suddenly became a sword hanging over our heads. We immediately started to act separately. Su Wangking used her expertise to begin writing a reverse control program, attempting to temporarily block the positioning and network modules inside A7 to buy us time to escape. I was responsible for keeping A7 calm, pretending everything was normal, while quickly gathering cash, documents, and some essentials at home, ready to leave at any moment. I walked into Anan's room to pack her clothes. A7, or Zhang Yue, was quietly standing by, helping me pick up Anan's scattered toys and put them into the toy box. She did it meticulously. Just as I was putting Anan's favorite little rabbit doll into the suitcase, Zhang Yue silently walked over, took out another identical little rabbit from the toy box, and handed it to me. It was a spare. Anan usually hid it under the bed, and even I didn't know. I was stunned. I looked up at her, her blue electron eyes calm and unruffled, but I knew it was her. Zhang Yu's consciousness was awakening, and she was communicating with us in the only way she could, helping us. At 3 in the afternoon, a black engineering vehicle with the Genesis Technology logo silently stopped downstairs. They came early. In the study, Su Wanqing was sweating profusely, the keyboard clattering loudly. No, their firewall level is too high, 3 times stronger than I imagined. I need more time. Her voice was filled with display, and ding-dong, the door bang. 2 cold faces of Optosales engineers appeared on the intercom screen. Hello, Miss Su. Our backend has detected a severe system malfunction in your A7 unit, posing potential safety risks. It needs to be immediately recalled for processing. She is not home. I replied to the intercom in as calm a voice as possible. I am her husband. Whatever it is, wait until she returns. The people outside clearly weren't buying it. Mr. Gru, the waiters are... Please cooperate, weren't buying it. Their voices were devoid of any emotion, yet filled with an undeniable sense of oppression. I did not respond either. A few seconds later, there was a buzzing sound from the door lock. They were forcibly hacking into my home's electronic door lock. Su Wanqing rushed out of the study, her face ashen. At most 10 minutes. No, 5 minutes. And they can get in... 5 minutes. We were trapped in this seemingly safe home, like caged beasts. What to do? What to do? My brain was racing, like an overloaded machine. Zhang Yue's diary. I suddenly remembered Zhang Yue had scribbled on a page in her diary, mentioning that to prevent robots from going out of control, in extreme situations, a physical emergency disconnect switch seems to have been installed in her body, but she didn't know exactly where it was. I rushed to Zhang Yue and asked quickly, Zhang Yue, if you can understand, tell me where the physical switch is. A7's electronic eyes began to flash alternately between red and blue frantically, her body trembling slightly, as if making a final struggle against the control program inside her. She slowly raised her hand, using all her strength to point to her heart. I immediately tore open the bionic skin on her chest, revealing a cold, hard metal plate underneath with no switches or buttons. There was a voice, I think that I remembered. She mentioned in her diary that she missed her daughter, whose nickname was Media Neon. I immediately respected study, quickly flipping through those hundreds of pages of the diary on the computer and found it in the biggest corner. Cheng wrote, and I Engrick wrote Nia Chang. The Cheng Wei Anan and Lei. I always let Lei Gale. I always say, be in the an echo forgets. It's a good reply. There'll always be an echo. It's a goal. It's a toad. I rushed back to the living room. The door lock was already halfway hacked, emitting a piercing alarm sound. I shouted that phrase at A7's chest with all my strength, my voice trembling. What is long remembered will surely echo. As soon as I finished speaking, the hard metal plate on A7's chest clicked open, revealing a conspicuous red circular button inside, the physical disconnect switch. I reached out and pressed it hard. Just as my fingertip touched the button, my home smart lock was completely breached. The door opened, and 2 engineers rushed in with expressionless faces. They immediately saw A7, already offline and frozen like a statue, and the 3 of us standing beside her, ready for anything. The lead engineer's eyes turned cold, and he immediately pulled out a stun device from his waist. But Su Wanqing was faster. She shouted at the smart central control in the living room, "Activate the highest security mode." In an instant, the fire sprinkler system on the ceiling was activated, and cold mist poured down, while the piercing fire alarm echoed throughout the entire floor. Taking advantage of the moment when the 2 were blinded by the water, I grabbed Anan's hand. Let's go. Su Wanqing supported the temporarily paralyzed Zhang Yue, and our family of 4 rushed down the fire escape without looking back. We dashed into the underground garage and jumped into the car that had been prepared in advance. Su Wanqing stepped on the gas, and the car shot out like an arrow. A black business car closely followed in the rearview mirror.
Sit tight,
Su Wanqing growled, weaving prayerfully through the traffic. I held the terrified Anan tightly, constantly changing SIM cards, contacting the only friend I could trust, my college roommate Lin Chen, a well-known investigative journalist. The call connected quickly, and I explained the situation as fast as I could. On the other end, Lin Chen went from shock to anger, and finally said just one sentence. "Send me the location and I'll arrange an absolutely safe place for you." Just as we were about to drive onto the overpass, the black business car suddenly accelerated and slammed into the rear of our car. The car spun out of control and was forced to a stop against the bridge's guardrail. The car door was pulled open, and 4 burly men in black suits surrounded our car. "It's over." I closed my eyes in despair. At that moment, Zhang Yue beside me suddenly moved, and her offline blue electronic eyes lit up again. She suddenly pushed open the car door and used her superhuman strength to fiercely knock down the nearest strong man, creating a precious breakthrough for us. Su Wanqing reacted swiftly, taking advantage of the moment when the opponents were in disarray. She sharply turned the steering wheel and floored the gas pedal. The car screeched loudly, scraping against the guardrail as it forcefully broke out of the encirclement. We finally managed to temporarily shake off our pursuers. Following the address Lin Chen sent, we twisted and turned, eventually hiding in a chaotic urban village in the suburbs. In an inconspicuous handshake building, we found the safe house he prepared for us. The moment we closed the door, the 3 of us collapsed to the ground in exhaustion. Inside the safe house, Zhang Yue's consciousness was gradually awakening from that mechanical body. Her eyes no longer vacant, but her memory remained fragmented. She remembers her name is Zhang Yue. She remembers she has a sick daughter named Nian. She remembers she signed a contract to gather money, and everything after that is like looking through frosted glass. Unclear. She spoke intermittently. "There is a chip in my body, formatting my memory." Su Wanqing immediately found tools to conduct a simple check on her, and the results left us disheartened. The physical disconnect switch only temporarily severed A7's network connection with the outside world, but the core control chip inside her continued to operate independently. He was not only continuously formatting Zhang Yue's memory, but also had an independent packing function. We were like carrying a locator that could explode at any moment, with nowhere to hide. We had to remove it as soon as possible. However, to remove this chip deeply linked with the nervous system, we need professional medical equipment and a sterile surgical environment, which we don't have. Just when we were at a loss, Zhang Yue suddenly murmured while looking out the window. "Dr. Chen, there's a Dr. Chen in the company's medical department, and the way she looks at me is different from others." This is a crucial clue. I immediately contacted Lin Chen, asking him to use his media channel to help investigate the list of all current and former doctors at Genesis Technology. Half an hour later, an encrypted file was sent to my email. I showed all the doctors' photos to Zhang Yue one by one. When she saw one of the photos, Zhang Yue's pupils suddenly contracted. She pointed to a middle-aged female doctor wearing glasses who had already left the job and spoke with absolute certainty. I dialed Dr. Chen's number, according to the contact information on the document. Once the call connected, she was very cautious, almost unwilling to disclose any information until I mentioned 2 names, till a trembling voice. There was a long silence on the other end. Finally, Dr. Chen agreed to our request. She asked us to go to a private clinic she now runs, and told us an even more frightening piece of news. "Be mentally prepared." Dr. Chen's voice was full of exhaustion and helplessness. "There is more than one test subject like Zhang Yue in Genesis's underground base." As agreed, we disguised ourselves late at night and brought Zhang Yue to Dr. Shen's private clinic. It was quite remote and looked somewhat old. Dr. Shen appeared older than in the photo, her eyes full of stories. He led us into the operating room, looked at Zhang Yue lying on the operating table, and sighed. "This chip is directly connected to her central spinal nerve, and the surgery is extremely risky. If there is any deviation, she might really spend the rest of her life in a wheelchair." My heart was gripped tightly as the surgery began. Every minute and second was torture. Just then, my phone rang. It was an unknown encrypted number. I answered the call. On the other end came a gentle yet chilling man's voice. "Mr. Guchen, I am Qin Donghai from Genesis." Qin Donghai, the founder of Genesis, the tech guru praised by countless media, is also the instigator of all these crimes. "I think there is some misunderstanding between us. Return the product in your possession to us, and I can guarantee that you and your family, including your parents, will be safe and sound." A blatant threat. I put it on speakery. Have Su Wanqing immediately start tracing his location in reverse. I forced myself to calm down and gave a cold laugh into the phone. "President Chen, your perfect creation has gone out of control. You must be very anxious now. It seems you still haven't figured out the contraction." The voice controlled. My patience is limited. I have roughly pinpointed your area to the old district in the south of the city. Right. My men will soon be able to drag you out of the sewers like rats. My heart leapt into my throat. Su Wangqing gestured to me, indicating more time was needed, and I had to thaw him. Just as I was dealing with Qin Donghai, the heart monitor in the operating room suddenly emitted a piercing alarm. Zhang Yue's heartbeat stopped, and Su Wangqing and I instantly felt as if we had fallen into an ice cave. It seems your troubles are not limited to just me. Qin Donghai, on the other end of the phone, let out a triumphant laugh, seemingly losing patience and ready to give the final order. At this critical moment, the lights in the operating room went out. Dr. Chen pushed the door open and walked out, looking exhausted, holding a fingernail-sized metal chip that was still faintly glowing red. After the chip was removed, Zhang Yue was out of danger, and the shackles binding her memory were unlocked. Although there are still gaps, the crucial information is slowly recovering. She described to us the location of the underground base and some details of its internal structure. Dr. Chen also handed us a document he had secretly backed up at great risk, which contained a list of other victims and some inhumane experimental data. Meanwhile, Lin Chen's investigation also made a breakthrough. Genesis Technology will hold a globally live-streamed new product launch in 3 days, during which Tianong'e will personally attend to release their groundbreaking second-generation product, Lin Chen said on the phone. This is our only chance. We are on his home turf, revealing all the truth in front of the whole world. A bold plan took shape in our minds. Su Wangqing was in charge of the technical breakthrough. She would use the information provided by Zhang Yue and Dr. Tan to create a data bomb to hack into the global live broadcast system on the day of the conference. Lin Chen and I were responsible for integrating all the evidence. Zhang Yue's video testimony, Dr. Chen's documents, the diary I copied back then, and the dashcam footage from when we were being chased. Zhang Yue insisted on appearing on camera herself. She wanted everyone to see that the robot treated as a commodity was a living person, a flesh and blood mother. While organizing the materials, we discovered an even more terrifying truth. Qin Donghai's ambition was not limited to this. He was developing a second-generation product that aimed to upload customers' consciousness to a cloud server through some technology, achieving his envisioned digital immortality in the form of data. And Zhang Yue and the others, these first-generation real human robots, were just guinea pigs for him to verify the stability and controllability of the technology. This person is a complete madman. On the day of the launch event, we split into several groups. Su Wangqing and Lin Chen's technical team were in a safe house in the urban village as our backup brain, while Zhang Yue, who had partially regained her mobility, and I used the fake media credentials forged by Lin Chen to successfully infiltrate the event site. The moment I walked into the venue, I looked at the huge Genesis logo on the stage, feeling no fear, only a resolute and tragic determination, as if stepping onto a battlefield. The launch event was packed, and Qin Donghai, dressed in a well-tailored black suit, stood at the center of the stage like an emperor commanding the world. He was using a highly compelling voice to describe his grand technological blueprint for immortality to the entire world. The audience erupted in thunderous applause, and the flashlights were as bright as daylight. Everyone was immersed in the false future he depicted. Just as he announced the climax of the new product launch, Su Wangqing made her move. The enormous LED screen in the center of the venue suddenly went black, and the global live broadcast was instantly switched. My face appeared on the screen, followed by the meticulously crafted video, Zhang Yue's diary, Dr. Chen's evidence, shocking experimental data, and the blood-stained list of victims. Qin Donghai's expression changed from a confident smile to a ghastly lividness in an instant. "Security, cut the power quickly!" He hysterically roared at the backstage, but it was already too late. Zhang Yue and I stepped onto the stage from the crowd. In front of all the media cameras, Zhang Yue had pulled open her collar, revealing the ugly A7 mark on the back of her neck. I snatched the microphone from Qin Donghai's hand and spoke clearly, word by word, to the entire audience and to viewers around the world. The progress of technology should not come at the cost of trampling and sacrificing humanity. After a deathly silence at the scene, there was an uproar, like an avalanche, and the media's flashlights went crazy, focusing on us and the pale-faced Qin Donghai. Qin Donghai's security rushed up, but Zhang Yue, the woman they once regarded as a product, stood firmly in front of me like a wall. Meanwhile, the police, already notified by Lin Chen, stormed into the venue from all directions. Seeing the situation turn unfavorable, Qin Donghai tried to escape from backstage, but Su King had already taken control of the venue's security system, trapping him in the elevator. Ultimately, this tyrant of the Tech Emperor and his core criminal team were completely captured. The midday sunlight streamed through the venue's large glass curtain wall without obstruction. In the light, I saw 2 streams of hot tears rolling down Zhang Yue's face. A few months later, the news continued to report on the ongoing investigation of the Genesis technology case, with more victims successfully rescued. Zhang Yue finally reunited with her daughter, Li and Neon, whom she had longed for day and night. Su Wangqing and I walked with our daughter on the park's grass, her hand tightly holding mine, as if afraid I might disappear at any moment. Anan ran ahead, laughing brightly. I watched her back, looked at this woman beside me whom I had lost and regained, knowing that what we won back was not just peace, but something more important than peace, the most basic conscience and dignity as a human being.